Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WANA Live, the reading series of the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia. I'm Damian Dressick, and this is my co-host,
Christina Fasonic, coming at you live from Wheeling, West Virginia. How's things over there in Slippery Rock, Damian?
Things are good, and well, as far as good as things get in Slippery Rock. There's a ceiling. How are things in Wheeling?
Well, they're pretty good, except, it's finals week, so crazy. And I don't have a lot of time to string together, but I'm so glad for the relief and the awesomeness of our show, because we have a writer tonight to take me out of the grating humdrum and into another place. So would you like
to?
Yes,
I think of this as the eschatological portion of the semester.
Yes. No, I can. Okay, I'll go with that.
All right. No, you are absolutely right. We do have an amazing writer tonight. I first saw our tonight's writer and reader. Karen Zacharias had edited an anthology, and I was familiar with her work and some of the other work from folks on the panel. And I went to ASA, and I was blown away by the poet Savannah Sipple, and we are so grateful for her coming on tonight to read for our audience. She is the author of WWJD and Other Poems from Sibling Rivalry Press that came out in 2019. It was included on the American Library Association's Over the Rainbow recommended LGBTQ reading list. It explores what it is like to be a queer woman in Appalachia and is rooted in its culture and her body. She's a writer from East Kentucky. Her writing has been published in Go magazine, Southern Cultures, Split This Rock, Salon, and other places. She is also the recipient of grants from Money for Women, Barbara Deming Memorial Fund, and the Kentucky Foundation for Women. A professor, editor, and writing mentor, Savannah resides in Lexington, Kentucky with her wife, and let's bring her on the show.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, sorry if there's an echo. We tend to meet each other. It's simultaneously there. So we're really, really excited. What are you going to read for us tonight?
Well, so I had a couple of these poems picked out already. I'm going to read some of the poems from the book that deal with the female body. And so I think I had picked a few of these out already, but then our conversations just a few minutes ago made me think there's a couple in here that I don't read that often, so I'll probably read them. So,
thank you very much. I cannot wait. So we are going to go hide in the green room, and we will be out when you're finished.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank Damian and the Writers Association of Northern Appalachia for having me tonight, and I'll get right into it. My book, WWJD and Other Poems, is about being queer, coming out in Appalachia, but it's also about a lot of other things, including my body and including the misogyny I faced growing up as a woman in Appalachia, particularly a woman who had strong opinions. And so I have read a couple of these somewhat frequently. But there are a few poems in here. There are multiple poems in here that deal with my body and the way I view my body and how that shaped who I am, but also my coming out. And so I'm going to read a few of these, and then we'll bring them back from the green room and have a chat. So the first one is called Pork Belly, and it's in the second section of the book. Imagine you clutch the carving knife, slice it under and against your own ribs. One cut for every time they call you fat. Take that meat, preserve it with salt to season your beans. Pinto, green. In your hands, a bucket. The fat sloshes, hot grease you collect in coffee cans, glass jars, your dreams dripping off your meat. This is poverty. You save every drop. Tell me, how many people you trying to feed. This next poem is a prose poem that I don't read very often, and it's called Pass Back. When I was 4, my mother left me at the nursing home with my grandmother and told her not to feed me. But I was hungry, or I complained I was, so Granny bought Cheetos. A damp orange crumb glopped on my crisp white shirt. Before she could pick it off, I swiped and spread it. And my mother lit in about how I didn't need to eat anything at all. Look at her. Look at her shirt. I constantly check my back to make sure it's not too fat. My back looks fat if my bra is too tight. A 2-pack of extenders costs $8. If I size up, it'd mean a bigger cup. And I do well to fill these C's. Even Lane Bryant has its limits. A girl that fat should have bigger tits. $8 can buy enough pinto beans to feed you all week. Wash pinto beans 3 times at least. Pick out the gravel, soak them overnight. The fat leaves my feet and calves first. It arrives home to my belly, my thighs. I noticed back fat. Even thin women will have a small paunch when they sit or slouch or bend. Fat spills out the back of bra straps on really big women or women who refuse to wear the bigger bra. Pressure cook beans for 10 minutes. Throw in some fat back, the Midland meat. Then finish cooking the beans on the stove. The soup's the best part. Soaked fat with pork flavor. Pass the cornbread. My first diet came in the 3rd grade. After we saw the doctor who had 2 charts, one for height and one for weight. If you make these changes now, you might be able to lose the fat and never look back. Biscuits are carbs. Gravy is carbs. Pass the blackberry jam. Carb. If it seemed I gained weight, Mother'd stare and purse her lips. She'd pick my favorite foods off my plate. Say, I just want a bite. Like she could swallow my fat away. When my 17th birthday came, the end of a liquid diet, I celebrated with a baked potato, no sour cream, no butter. She said, be careful so you don't gain back the fat. The only thing worse than having to lose weight was it coming back. I've been eating cheeseburgers the whole 4 months, a midweek treat. On the weeks I ate a cheeseburger, I lost 5 pounds. The weeks I didn't, I lost 3. Pass the pickles. Miracle Whip has 1/3 of the calories and fat of mayonnaise. It was Miracle Whip only in our house, and that stuff tastes like shit. I didn't know real mayo tasted different until I ate it on purpose in college. Pass the mustard. Pass peanuts that might make my face break out. Pass the whole milk. Pass the milk fat. Pass chocolate, also bad for my face. Pass brie, hummus, avocado, Greek yogurt, the sour cream. Pass potatoes mashed with butter. Pass the fatty fat butter. Pass it back around the seconds. Pass marbled steak, olive oil dressing, homemade croutons. Pass fresh mozzarella, the pepperoni, thick crust. My therapist says, where do you feel this trauma? The tears answer, always in my back. Boxing makes me feel beautiful because muscles contract under my back fat ripples. I'm always the first to offer to carry a heavy load for someone else. I grip the steering wheel a certain way so my flexor muscles pop. Can you see muscle sinewed to muscle? Backbones make the best taters. Pressure cook them together for 20 minutes and the meat will slide off the joints. That with those sweet greasy taters make a meal fit for a working. I know what my back looks like from behind. Pillowy. I have weird food habits. I save my favorites for last, and often by the time I get to them, I'm too full to enjoy them. I eat pizza with a knife and fork, cut my burgers in half, cut chicken meat from bones because it's gross to see a fat person enjoy her food. I carry shout wipes in case anything drips. Food stains on clothes are a shame. My favorite meal might be catfish and coleslaw, the salty fish with a slight hint of sweet in the slaw, mixed with a kick of onion and a hush puppy. Or lasagna, the way tomatoes and spices bed together atop cheese and meat. Or fresh green beans and cornbread, or macaroni and tomatoes, mustard greens and salmon patties, taco salad, toast, and eggs. Baked buffalo chicken, steak, and sauteed mushrooms. I make a mean pot of chicken and dumplings, and cornbread so good you don't even need butter. But a slice with molasses makes a real good dessert. I want to be marbled, so that if you were to slice me, you'd know what a good cut I am. You see this fat body? Bite it. Let me fill you up. I'll read one more as soon as I find it. This is called In the Word with God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was fat. In the beginning, I was fat. In the beginning, I was lean and long, carried 2 weeks past due, and wore preemie clothes. And then I chunked up, baby fat, a fat baby. Baby, I grew big boned, grew 6 inches taller than the other little girls, grew hips and thighs and breasts before my time. In percentile on all the doctor's charts, I grew. I knew I was too large, too loud, too mouthy for boys. I knew even then I loved girls. I knew by how loud the boys said no. I wanted them to say no. I wanted them to say yes. I wanted to feel like I could stop burying myself in my body. My body grew large. My body grew larger. A walk-in closet. I stood on the inside, hiding behind dresses. On the outside, Bible verses and Jesus. Men who made sure I heard them tell me my body was not my own. My mind was not my own. But it was. So I started to drag myself out. I kicked that door open. I kicked it down. Haven't looked back. Look, don't look back. Don't look back at the beginning. In the beginning was that Word, and that Word was God. That Word is not God. I am God. I am that Word. I am God's Word. I'm still fat.
Oh, man. Okay, so I have a lot to say.
Okay.
The word was fat. I love it. I kept thinking, though, as I was listening, how many women, including myself, how your narrative echoes so much of my own experiences growing up in Appalachia, in a place that is notorious for being a food desert. Mm-hmm. And the food that we have available to us, some of us obviously are okay and thrive on it, and the rest of us maybe not. Mm-hmm. But I kept thinking when you were reading Pork Belly, this slicing into the flesh, and how so many women I know talked about how they just wanted to take a carving knife, their thighs, to their bellies, to their breasts, to that very visceral image, the idea of this melting fat and the melting of greens, and the phrase pressure cooker that kept coming up over and over again, and it reminded me of being a young girl and trying to visualize my own flesh burning. That I would rather burn it away than have it, than embody it, and how much that has changed. Has that changed for you as you've gone through the writing process? Have you learned more about and appreciate your body?
Yeah, I think that in the process of writing this book, a lot of what I come to is an appreciation. And there are things, for a while I saw these as like the good qualities that you cling to. Like they always tell fat girls you have pretty eyes, or pretty hair or whatever. And so those are, I talk about boxing a little bit, talk about muscles, And so those have been parts of my body that I've appreciated even when I was very ashamed of my body. And I don't think we fully realize the way the kind of shame we put on people. We don't fully realize how deep that can go and all of the ways it can affect a person, even if they come across as being very confident. And so I think that it took me a long time. I spent a huge part of my life feeling like my body was not mine and being told that my body was not mine, that I did not have autonomy to make certain decisions. I did not have autonomy, that if I married a man or dated a man, the body was his, to do with what he wanted. And so I also grew up with people invading my space, my personal space, in a way that was not something I wanted. And so I have come to be very proud of my autonomy and what that means, both physically, emotionally, whatever. I think everyone has things they would like to change. But at the same time, wherever we are with our body, whether we are trying to change the way it looks or change our hairstyle or whatever else, or if we're perfectly happy and content and loving it, I mean, we should love it regardless of what we're doing. I think we have to find a way to appreciate who we are and respect who we are and love who we are, even if that means, maybe I would want something to be different. I can't set this hope of a standard up on a pedestal and think that everything will be better if this one thing is different. So the book is a process of acceptance, and the project I'm working on now is also capturing much more of that, capturing it more in depth. It's a memoir and essays, and so that was one of the things I realized in writing WWJD. I still have things to say about it, and so that's a huge part of what the book is about.
Yes, when you talk about misogyny and women in Appalachia, especially women with strong opinions, what I kept thinking about was how, we're told as women, no matter our size, that we should not take up space. We should be invisible. We should shut up. And at some point, the fat liberation movement found me. And when it did, I was like, I'm taking up some space. Mm-hmm. You go over. But it took a long time for me to get there. And I still have, like you said, I still have work to do. And I love that you're moving into another genre with that work, because I think that the heart of the most important things that we do and think about as writers is reflected in the fact that we keep churning it through another genre, another, way of twisting it and bending it and making sense out of it. Mm-hmm. And I've monopolized this conversation. Go ahead.
Well, I think the thing that, you mentioned the misogyny that we deal with. We're taught in so many different ways to make ourselves smaller. Mm-hmm. And that's still something I think I'm probably still working through. Because there's the matter of taking up space physically, but then there's also the issue of making space for yourself to feel what you feel or think what you think or have your own opinions, make your own decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I've always been the fat kid. And so, people threw insults at me all the time, but people, if someone is unhappy with me, the first thing they almost, by someone, particularly men, one of the first insults a man will throw at me is they'll call me a fat bitch. And I'm like, you're not telling me anything I don't already know. Be a little more creative if you're going to be upset with me. Use your words. Exactly. Because we're taught that's the worst thing you can be, right? Is be a bitch and be big. And so it's always the first thing they say about me. And I just kind of laugh it off now. So
You can't fight stupid.
yeah.
Damien, would you like to add something to this? This was awesome. Sorry, it was just like a.
No. I was very much enjoying the conversation. Savannah, I'm really glad to hear you're working on a collection of essays. I very much appreciate the rawness and your linguistic dexterity was also something that really blew me away. Like I love the double entendre with the pass in the poem where it's like what you pass it or pass on it. And I thought that was just it kind of built for me. And I remember you said I want them to say no, I want them to say yes. And I remember the thing when I first saw you read, you were talking about I love these mountains, I hate these mountains. I was just like, oh, you're articulating something within so many of us in such a portable way that I was really blown away. So I'm really glad to hear that you're moving on trying to do some of the similar work with essays. I'm really excited to see your next book.
Thank you. I'm really fascinated with the duality of language, but also the ways we can hold multiple complexities at once and how do we do that. And so it's something I'm exploring in my prose too. So
that's awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you for being on this show. This was fantastic.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thanks for coming on. So are you, I usually ask about new work. The other thing I'd like to ask about is where can people see you next? What are you able to do? Are you doing live events yet? Or are you doing virtual stuff that people can watch?
So I don't have anything on my schedule right now. I am this summer trying to finish what I'm working on, at least get a somewhat solid draft of the memoir and get it out to places. And I haven't booked anything for the fall yet. So they can you can always check my website. Okay. And I'm on Facebook. So I usually post stuff once I get it scheduled.
Super cool.
Awesome. We look forward to your collection. It's going to be awesome. I just know it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on. And we will see everybody next week at 8:00 on Thursday night for WANA Live.
Yep. We will be back at 8:00 next week. See everybody later.
All right. Take
Bye,
care.
you all.
Thanks for tuning in.